Episode 9.
Episode 9. We are here.
We are. Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So before we get into it, yes, this is coming out probably, almost 2 weeks after the finale?
Yeah, we usually roll about 2 weeks, I think, after whatever big thing happens. And
actually, this is going to be 1 week. Just 8 days after. Because the finale was on Sunday. We're recording Thursday because we postponed, and this is going to be the episode out on Monday. So yeah, it'll be 8 days after. So spoilers again, if you haven't watched it, go watch the finale if you want to watch it. If you haven't watched it or you don't want to watch it, then keep listening. Otherwise, don't say we didn't warn you, assholes.
Yeah, I mean, I get, and I could see how it's kind of annoying that we're doing another spoiler thing, and I have to re-stress that the reason we have to do this, I mean, it's Game of Thrones, and I mean, if you don't watch Game of Thrones, I feel you, maybe you won't care about this, that's okay, maybe you haven't had a chance to finish it. I think this is a little more realistic to finish over, like, when we did Marvel Endgame, right? Because that's a theater movie. And for parents with kids, if they can't get a sitter or they don't want to take their kid to a movie theater, like I'm about to have a son.
Totally understandable.
Yeah, Jess and I have pretty much said that movies are out unless we can find a sitter, right? I'm never going to be the person with a whining baby in a movie. I can't be that person. It happened while I was watching Endgame. It was very irritating. So with Game of Thrones, it's a big deal, and in geek culture, and I think it's important. And I think this more than Endgame is important to see where geek culture has a bad turn, in my opinion, and we'll get into it as we kind of address, because we're not just going to talk about season 8. We'll address the finale, but I think Game of Thrones overall and just what it's done for geek culture and really just HBO and where they're sitting and how that's doing for them and like the ending there for what they did and their advertising, but. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, just kind of jumping into it, and what it is and what we're going to talk about with this. And I think it's important, and I know that I'm excited because this is episode 9. So for you guys that have been following, you know that episode 10 is afterwards, and episode 10 starts our Star Wars talk. So I'm very, very excited about that. We're doing our own trilogy, if you will, where we're doing episode 10, 11, and 12 is going to be all of the Star Wars movies. We are excluding the TV shows for good reason. Now. Yeah, for now. We're going to talk about TV shows later with Disney Plus. If you listen to our Disney Plus spiel, really excited about the new Clone Wars season. So good stuff coming up. Good stuff happening, Steve. And speaking of happening and life and things, how have you been, man?
Good. We just did, so as I've said before, I'm doing lots of 3D printing and laser engraving and stuff, trying to get that off the ground, and we did a local farm market on Sunday. I didn't sell a ton of stuff. I sold one set of Game of Thrones coasters that I had made.
That's dope.
Yeah. My wife, though, sold about half of all the cupcakes and stuff that she brought because she bakes on the side.
Now, is anybody else at the market doing like baking and stuff, or was she kind of the only place to grab that sort of thing? Like what is your market? Because when I'm thinking like farmers markets, the only thing I'm really thinking of, and that's more like farmers coming in and bringing their goods or whatever. Yeah. I know that farmers markets aren't just that. I know that other people bring like craft goods and jellies and stuff like that, but I didn't know if this was similar or.
So they call it a farmer's market, and they do have people with jellies and other stuff, but it's not, like there was no farm there with vegetables and stuff, which would have been nice. Well, actually, no, there was one, because I bought some microgreens to eat for lunch from them.
Yeah, that's dope, dude. So there's a lot of craft
She was the
people?
only one. There was a mix of stuff. So there was a actual professional engraving company there, which is kind of shitty. So it made me realize I need to focus more on the 3D printing part versus the engraving part.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, engraving's a little easier to get into than 3D printing.
Yeah. And other than that, though, we were probably the only two with like that side of it. Baking wise, there was a couple different bakers, but nothing specifically with like what she did. So there was a Mexican baking place, so you could get like traditional Mexican rolls and like Mexican inspired food. So they had like a jalapeno roll, stuff like that, which was really cool. They had a family that was Aboriginal. I think that's the term right now. If I offended anybody, I am sorry. For those that don't know, Aboriginal are native Indian to the region. I don't know what band these people were from, but they made bannock, which has had many different forms, but it's a traditional kind of like campfire bread type thing. It's a no rise, cook it in a pan with oil type of bread.
That's cool.
So that was just a couple rows down from us. There was a lot of food. So we found this dude with hot sauce, and the hot sauce was amazing. So my wife and I both bought a bottle of hot sauce from him.
Oh, nice.
He came over and bought a cupcake though, so that was nice. I got the information for a seafood guy that sells fresh seafood. He's got a store not too far from us. Yeah, there was a couple of really cool things. The next one is more kid-oriented that we're doing, so I'm starting to do more kid stuff in my 3D printing. So I'm going to do a bunch more, but I've got a single set of Minecraft keychains, like the Minecraft tools. I'm going to be doing character keychains that are also cell phone holders. So like a cell phone stand for your desk. Cool. Yeah, I'm going to do a lot more smaller things to have more stuff. And because it's the kid one, we're going to be focusing more on kids. But yeah.
Heck yeah, man.
So what about you?
Honestly, not a lot. I've been playing a lot of Warframe. We have a big vacation coming up. We're going to West Virginia and then New York.
Country roads.
Yep, going to upstate New York. So we're going to West Virginia to visit some family. Up to upstate to a wedding. A buddy of mine, JP's getting married. He actually does a podcast that I like that's Riding the Pine. And
yes.
him and his friend Scott do that, and they talk like sports stuff, and it's really good. And actually, they got into contact with me about possibly doing some esports stuff, so maybe something to look out for and talk about.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it would be neat. So they're fans of the show. They like to listen to the show, which is really cool, and I like to listen to them. And
I've got them downloaded. I haven't listened to them yet.
Yeah,
it's
right on.
Been too crazy, but I do have them downloaded. So.
Yeah, so old JP's getting married, so get to go do that and celebrate, marriage and stuff, which I'm a big fan of. And then we're coming back to West Virginia. So for our episode 11, I will probably be recording remote, which is going to be interesting. So I'm going to take my headset and stuff with me. Yeah, so the sound quality won't be great on my end, so you'll have to work some magic. But
I will do what I can.
Yeah, at least I'll be there to be able to talk about it, which is nice because it means that I get to watch episodes 4, 5, and 6 and Rogue One with the family. So that's going to be kind of cool to do that and sit down and play or do that and, watch those movies with them, and I'll play a little Warframe. But other than that, man, it's just, taking care of the house, things like that. Not a lot going on. Excited to talk about these. I've been stoked to talk about the episode, and episode 9 is going to be a big one just with Game of Thrones. And I'd like to spruce in a little bit of how, like, geek culture, and because I've really been disappointed, honestly, from just a person who I feel like and we'll get into it, but either way, just like, I just want to talk about kind of where the culture is at with people and fans and where they sit. So,
yeah, no, let's just get at it then.
Yeah.
So, if you want to start, because you're itching, I can hear it. You're itching.
I really am. Everyone's a critic, man. I get that there's certain things that people fall in love with, and I'm kind of a bad representation, I guess. I'm more of your virgin eyes, because I didn't read the books. So Game of Thrones for me has been Peter Dinklage as Tyrion, you know what I mean? And, Macy Williams as Arya Stark, and Sophie Turner as Sansa, and Kit Harington as Jon
I'll be honest,
Snow.
I have the same eyes on it. I started reading the books before I watched the show, and I got halfway through the first book and was like, great, I can watch the show now because I've read enough of the book. I could probably watch the first episode. And they did something in the first episode that wasn't covered yet in the book. And so I got pissed. So I stopped reading the book. I even stopped watching the show at the time because I was angry. And then about 2 years ago, my wife and I sat down and binged seasons 1 through 5 right before season 6 started. And absolutely just full on into it. I think I've watched every one now 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like Jess and I, so Jess has read the book, and Ty, my best friend, had read the book, and so when we used to all watch the first few seasons together, they got to kind of see me react to certain characters. Like Oberon was a big one. I was absolutely in love with Oberon as I'm watching the show, and I loved him, and I kept talking about how excited I was to see what happened with Oberon and what they were going to do. And like they did a really good job about holding back. And then when he got crushed, like I can't rewatch that episode, that part when the mountain crushes.
God.
I just can't do it. But there comes a time when an old fat fucker can't, and I've been really good about my language, but I can't help it. When this old fat man can't write new books, right? So you've got these directors who are doing the best they can and trying to move a story that doesn't have book references anymore. And I get that people are in love with the way the book rolls out, but I don't personally want to see, and I remember when Harry Potter was a thing and how fans responded to that and how people were angry they didn't do this and they didn't do that. Those are movies, man. Like, they have to fit a lot of information into a little bit, and sometimes things just don't look good on the big screen. And I'm sorry, like, I've still never read the Harry Potter books. I don't intend to ever read the Harry Potter books. I'm not a big reading guy unless it has pictures. It's just not me. My wife loves to read books, and she loved every bit of Game of Thrones. Like, there's parts she doesn't like, but I mean, that's just because the show didn't do something, not because it had to do with the book compared to the show. And I think that that's where people need to sit. And, I'm not saying that people aren't entitled to their opinion. I just don't like what I've seen. I got season 8. The
visceral hate for season 8, like, people, like, in their soul hate this season.
Yeah, and I don't think they're right. I think that they are wrong. And I get that saying an opinion is wrong, but I think that the outlash of poor writing, the outlash of poor, like, episodes and stuff, I think it's wrong. I don't think...
Yeah. I'm with you 100% on this.
And I appreciate that, because you look at it and it's funny that it's so hateful. Like, it's just so funny. Like, everybody's loved these shows so much, and then you just turn like that. And I think that says something about the community. This is funny because this same thing happened with Rick and Morty, where the creators of Rick and Morty were like, I hate our fans. They're the worst. Because they get, like, uppity, or they get, like, where they're like, well, I understand Rick and Morty. You don't get that? Well, you're stupid. Yeah. Like, there was some really dumb shit that happened with it.
Star Wars fans forced Star Wars actresses to quit social media because they hated on them. Like, it's...
Yeah, and it's cool that episode 10 for us is going to talk about Solo specifically, but episodes 1, 2, and 3, where we're going to get, like, we're talking about some of the most hated Star Wars stuff in episodes 1, 2, and 3 when George Lucas still had it. And we'll get to that. I don't want to veer off of it.
I don't want to.
And I'm not trying to veer away from Game of Thrones. It's just, I was sickened personally, like, just seeing how people reacted, because the finale ended, and honestly, I was just like, right on, man. Right on.
Yeah, I enjoyed the ending. There was parts of it that I had issue with, which, we'll get into more detail. But overall, I was like, I get it. Like, it was all right. That was an all right ending for a series. To me, it was, see, I'm old. To me, it was one of my favorite shows watching up. It's very similar while I was growing up, was Seinfeld. To me, it was very simple. Like, the finale of Seinfeld didn't, overall, in the tone of everything for the people that watched it, had that same kind of, like, really? That's how you're leaving it? So the mass response from everybody with that same feeling, I understand. I don't agree with it. But, yeah.
So there's this movie called Good Will Hunting. I'm sure nobody's seen that.
Nobody has seen that at all.
And there's an ending to that, and it honestly upsets some people. And I think it's one of the greatest endings that's ever in a movie. It's one of my favorite endings of all time. And if you guys haven't seen it, I'm sorry. I mean, it's been around too long. I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything, but I'll say it. Spoiler alert for Good Will Hunting. At the end, when he goes to Robin Williams, Matt Damon, he leaves a cool note, and it's quoting what Robin Williams had said to him before, and he says, "I'm going to see about a girl," and it ends on that, and he leaves. Right? You don't get to see the happy ending of whether he ends up with her. You don't see any of that. You don't need to. There's a similar ending in Californication. So Californication is a prime example of what people being this crappy about the ending ruins a show. So when Californication ended, I think it's a season 6, So I think it has 7 seasons. I've never watched the 7th season because my best friend told me not to. And the reason why is because there was such an uproar and a backlash about how it ended in 6, and the reason why I bring up Good Will Hunting, it's very much like that. It's very much open-ended of, you don't need to see it. Like, some things are okay to be left to imagination. So when you talk about Game of Thrones and you talk about the fans and how they're so upset about this and that, 1, I didn't want Jon on the throne. 2, I didn't want Daenerys on the throne. 3, I love that Bran ends up on the throne. Personally, I think it's awesome. I think it's a cool way to end it. I do see where he's like, I can't lead Westeros, but you have to understand, Bran is a 3-eyed raven. Like, he sees beyond other things. I think it was a really great performance by Peter Dinklage as Tyrion. Yes. I thought that he, when you talk about telling stories and stuff, and I think that Bran has a story, and I think it's a great story, and I think that it had a lot of stuff that happened. And I think the punishment for Jon was one that was fitting of his life. I mean, if you think about it, he loved Ygritte. And I mean, I think that's his wife in real life too.
It is his wife in real life.
Yeah, I think they fell in love and set. But like, that was a romance that I wanted to see forever. I loved those 2 characters, but she just couldn't be. And they got rid of her. And then Daenerys, like, what she was doing, she became her father. Like, not so much that she had lost her mind, but if you think about Daenerys and where she was sitting back in the original seasons, Daenerys really hadn't, in my opinion, hadn't grown. Like, Daenerys had found more people.
She was evil from the beginning.
Well, it's not even that she's evil, man. She just has a different perspective, in my opinion. And yeah, her burning all of King's Landing, that was something, but I don't think it was much of a surprise. And everybody was like, I didn't get the buildup I wanted. Yeah.
I don't understand why she changed.
She's a Targaryen, man.
She's a Targaryen. And every time that she was faced with this wall of just something she had to really battle against, her instant response every time was kill it with fire.
Yeah, and that's her ego,
blood
man.
And fire.
Like, what do you mean they haven't built up to this? She killed Samwell Tarly's family just by, like, didn't even save the son despite Tyrion I don't see how people didn't see it coming. I'm sorry. Yeah. Like, if you're out there and you're still so mad that Daenerys burned a city, I don't get it. If you're so mad that Jon killed her, I don't get why you're mad about that. Like, Jon had to do something.
And part of me, like, with that whole thing, like her torching the city, I'm like, I'm pretty sure in the back of her mind, she's going, Jon's down there. Jon's got a better claim to this throne than me. Oops, he got caught in the crossfire while I torched everybody else. Now nobody knows that he has a better claim to the throne than me.
I honestly want to see, I wanted to see him get torched though, because I want to see the Targaryen in him, like him resist the dragon's fire. Like, I want to see that. I wanted to see
that
it.
would have been incredible.
Yeah, I wanted to see it happen. It didn't. That was one thing I did want to see and I didn't get, but I was okay with, like, and the way they did Jon, I mean, he needed to be punished. Like, they needed peace. Like that. And what does he end up being with? Ghost. And he ends up being with Tormont. And it was super cool because he was
back
great
in the
with
north.
the wildling. Yeah. I think Jon ended up where he belonged. I don't think he has to be a Night's Watch. There's no wall to watch, man. There's no White Walkers anymore. I mean,
he became Mance Rayder. He became the king of the Beyond the Wall. And
if you think about Bran being the 3-eyed raven, he knew that. He knew what he was doing. He knew where he was sending Jon.
He knew everything. And so that's the funniest part about this is people were like, Jon, I don't understand why Bran is there. He didn't do anything. I'm like, he did everything. You have to understand, as the 3-eyed raven, he could see in the future. He knew what was happening. He literally put into place every single thing for baby. That to happen.
Your poor baby's just screaming.
I know she is.
Oh, she's just so sad.
She's really tired.
So. Is she still trying to convert with the time change and everything?
No, they're fine now. But
okay, that's good.
They went cross border to go shopping today, so she just didn't get her naps and stuff. She's just exhausted.
Poor thing. But you're right. You're right.
But Bran, since day one, since he became the 3-eyed raven, everything he has done has been to put himself on that throne.
Yep, and if you think about it, the Starks won, man. The Starks won. They won the whole thing, the whole
Literally
enchilada.
everything.
Yep, you got the way north. John's in charge. You've got the north. Sansa's in charge, and then you've got King's Landing and the Six Kingdoms. Yeah, and the Six Kingdoms, and who's in charge?
Arya's gonna go settle the west.
Yep, pretty much in the end, dude. The Starks won. I loved it. I loved every bit of it. I thought it was incredible, and people can argue with me, and if this gets a lot of responses from folks who are listening, and you have your opinions,
hope it does.
Fine. But I'm sorry. I thought it was great. I thought it was a great season. And so there is something I will say. So something I didn't do with the first 7 seasons that I did do with 8 was I watched the ending. So every time an episode would end, I would normally just turn the episode off. I didn't like seeing next time on Game of Thrones. I didn't like watching the director's little piece at the end. For season 8, I did watch the season. I did watch the directors talk about what their plans were and what they were doing. And the reason I did it for 8 was to make sure I understood what their vision was as I watched each episode. And I will tell you, because I'm sure the counter arguments, well, you shouldn't have had to watch the directors. You should have known. Well, hear me this. Every bit of the things the director said for their vision was exactly what I was seeing in the episodes anyway. So it was just getting rest assurance. I picked up on every little thing the directors were trying to do, and I felt for it. I thought the lighting was great. I thought the cinematography was great. I thought that the viewpoints and what they did, and I thought the way they closed stories was great. I thought that it was just a good season. And yeah, you could argue that any seasons, if with more episodes or with more time or with another season, anything could be made better. Well, yeah, because you get more development. But people angry that they killed people like Varys and that they killed other certain characters that went away, they did, and Daenerys, they're talking about how they built these characters up over so many seasons. Ned Stark is one of the most important characters in the series, and he got killed in season 1. After a lot of build-up, and they just chopped off his head. Oberyn was an incredible Dorne character that had a lot of things. He only lasted that one season. He was dead. Like, you're talking about being mad that characters who developed over seasons, they survived over so long a time, got their ends. Okay, yeah, they died. Like, sometimes shit just happens, man. Like, and I love that about the show. Like, the fact that Jaime didn't end up with Brienne. Like, everybody wanted that to happen. You don't always get what you want. It was a beautiful romance, but Jaime is flawed, severely flawed, to want Cersei. As soon as he feels Cersei's in danger, he has to be there. And he got to die with her in his arms. And I thought it was appropriate. I thought it was good. I thought the season was great. And I'm sure you can complain about many aspects of anything. But I thought that those two directors took a group of books written by Martin, and they turned them into something incredible visually. It was a lot of fun to watch the adventures over these 8 seasons of these characters, and they worked hard to present something great, and I thought it was wonderful. And you were right. I was itching. To say things. I had to say stuff.
I can tell.
I just don't like when fans react the way they did. I get that people can be angry about things, but I don't think that there was good enough
signing a petition.
Mad. Yeah.
Signing a petition is not like, So
what appreciation are you giving, you know?
Exactly. You brought up one of the deaths I actually have issue with. Not in that they killed him, but the way they didn't explain why he was being killed. So it was Varys. And so I get Dany seeing him talk to Jon and going like, okay, he's betraying me. I get that part. The part that I don't get is the Tyrion turning on him before that. Because obviously he had already made up his mind that he was going to turn on Varys. So there was something they didn't air that obviously would have explained that a little bit more. And so that was the one death that kind of irked me a little bit.
I don't get
my baby is going crazy.
Yeah, she is angry. I don't understand.
Turn my mic down just a little bit and see if it makes a difference.
Oh no, not like that. With some vocals like that, man, she is mad at the world. I know. They did explain it. I felt like it was pretty clear why he did it.
It was like the implied that he was going to poison her type thing with the whole, she's not eating.
No. I didn't see that at all. No, I thought that Varys just... All I saw was that Tyrion had full faith in Daenerys, and he put it all on the line for her. Right?
Yeah, and then, which tied into episode 7 with the torching, the look on his face when he realized that he backed the wrong person.
Right, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, I think it was pretty clear why Varys died. Like, she mentioned to him if he ever crossed her again, she was going to kill him.
Yeah, so I get his part, but then he turns around and goes and releases Jaime. So it's like...
No. I'm saying...
I know.
She's saying would... Varys.
Yes, yeah.
She told Varys, because Varys is the one who had her poisoned. Varys was the one sending the letters from King's Landing for Robert Baratheon.
Yes, actually, that is... Yes, you are
And
correct.
she made very clear to him...
She gave him the one... Yeah, she gave him the one warning that if you ever cross me, you're dead.
Yep, you're dead. Yes. And he did. He tried to uprise. And and just like you forgot, I think people forgot. And given I rewatched every season right before this one, and I'm sure a lot of people did, but not everybody has time for that. But my wife and I, we rewatched all of them. So, you see that moment again, and you see how clear she was. Because a lot of people would compare that to Tyrion. Well, Tyrion had Jorah Mormont's backing, which was huge to Daenerys, and Daenerys had trusted him to be her hand. And there was some leeway in how she treated him until that final point, right? Until he just his treasonous ways to her were too much, especially releasing Jaime. But for Varys, he was warned very clearly, and Varys says nothing to her other than Varys didn't mean as much to her as like Tyrion had or Jorah had. Like Varys was, he's the master of whispers. Like, as far as she was concerned, he knew that Jon was going to become who Jon really was, and he was trying to overthrow her. And at that very moment, she needs to take care of it. That's why he had to die. Like, he knew what his risks were. He's the master of whispers. I mean, Varys has played this game long enough, and he cared about what... And, it's sad because that's even more reason to know that Daenerys was going to turn. Like, Varys saw it, and Varys died knowing that very clearly. It was very clear to him. And it's funny because that was the last non-blind person. Because Tyrion was blind, Jon was blind. Jon is
totally blind.
Yep. Everybody was blind to Daenerys and who she truly was on the inside. Everybody wanted to hope. But as soon as she lost Missandei, like, she was gone, man. You didn't get, like... Missandei was like a pleasant, wonderful person at her side that kept her and the Warris, Grey Worm, like the war side of him, the dullness, the numbness of him. Missandei was the glue that kept those two, the raging fire and the stern warrior, at bay in a more peaceful way. The minute that Cersei beheaded Missandei, it was over, man.
Oh, it was over.
And Varys saw that. And then the what put the icing on the cake was the secret of Jon, right? You take that away. You take this Missandei glue that was holding that trifecta of people together, and then the love interest. Daenerys truly loved Jon, and Jon truly loved Daenerys. But incest wasn't a thing that Jon was into. I mean, he was raised that was wrong, whereas Daenerys didn't care. She just wanted Jon, and so. She made it very clear. So I'm just, for me, like every little piece that I'm seeing people try to say as a whole, I find a way to mend it. And for me, that's good enough. Maybe for them it's not, and they want to be angry, but I don't know why you'd want to be angry. It's such a wonderful show that's given me personally and a lot of the culture beyond geek culture, but it's brought more people into loving like that sort of cool like environment, this little geeky environment. And I think to hate on it so badly and not take a step back and just everybody just so sure of themselves. Yes, it's the worst thing ever. I don't think that you're right, and I think that you're wrong. I think that you're too harsh, and I think you're trying to do too much or expect too much. I don't know what you wanted, but I thought it was great. I thought it was great, and I've mainly just been talking this whole time. I'm sorry. I'm so angry, man. I'm just so mad.
We're going to have episodes like this where one of us just feels so passionately about the topic that one of us is just going to take the lead and talk for majority of the episode. And I have absolutely no issue with that.
I'm disappointed.
I've unfortunately, in one of our friends' Discords, Scuba, one of our old
Oh,
art
yeah. Love that guy
creative.
so much.
He has a Discord where we had a Game of Thrones death pool where we picked 3 people that were going to live through it and then who we thought was going to live on the throne. So we talked about this a lot. And so I very much aired on I think there was about 6 or 7 of us in there that were active talking, and 2 of us were very much this. We enjoyed it. We were able to see these things building, like Daenerys turning evil, like all this stuff. It's like, no, they've hinted at it forever. Like, this isn't a big change. And we were that voice against 4 to 5 people that absolutely hated this season. And we're like, the writing is so poor. They're not fleshing anything out. And I'm like, they built the seeds 7 years ago. And then one person was like, oh, but foreshadowing isn't good storytelling. I'm like, it can be though. Like, that's the thing, is it can be. A very well written story can leave you hints early on in foreshadowing for a major change later. And if you didn't pick up on it, that's on you as the reader. So if you missed the foreshadowing in the early stages of the Game of Thrones for the way things were going to end up, that's on you as a viewer. And I hate to say that, and it's going to piss people off, but it's not poor writing when they do that. It is a tool used by writers forever, and it was used masterfully in this. There's people that have gone back to rewatch episode 1, and when Ned is beheading, I don't remember who it is, but he's beheading the guy in the field.
No, that's a runaway from the Night's Watch. So remember, they saw the White Walker in the first episode.
Yes.
And that one guy survives, and he runs, and because it's Ned's duty. And that's when I think they have Bran watch, because he's old enough now to see.
Yes. And
John's like, he'll know if you don't watch.
Yeah. And as he's doing the speech in the name of the king of this, King of the Andals, right as he says the king, the camera cuts to Bran's face. Like, foreshadowing. Episode 1. Here's your king. Like, yes, it's reading really lots into editing and the storytelling and praying that that's really what they were doing. But if it is, that's genius. That
and
8
who says
seasons
it's not?
later. Exactly.
Marvel did it.
And for those that are wanting to read the stories and see how George takes it, he's already said the ending will be different in the book.
And that's good, because that's George's story, man. This is Benioff's and Weiss's story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they were given input. George said, here's a synopsis of the way the final book's going to go. Kind of. And then they ran with it. So, I mean, it's the same thing with The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead doesn't follow the comics. It uses the comics as reference.
I don't watch The Walking Dead. I don't like zombie stuff, so it's not really
No,
for
I
me.
know. But
I have heard that, what you're talking about. Because people would be excited about things that happen in the comics, but they knew that the show was doing kind of their own version of it. It was just like, hey, I know that it's happening around this timeline or whatever.
Yeah, they completely skipped an entire section of the comics, because I've read most of the comics. I enjoy the TV show. I really enjoyed it up until the last season or 2, and then I just haven't had time to watch it.
No, that's fair.
But so, and people would come to me and they'd be like, "Oh, so what's going to happen?" And because I could tell them kind of what was going to happen based on my knowledge from the comics and stuff, but it's because I had read the comics, I knew kind of what was going to happen in the show, but there was difference. Different characters were doing things. Like in the comics, it's Rick who loses his arm, but in the TV show, it was, oh my God, my brain has stopped working.
I don't even know who Rick is, man.
Yeah.
So.
Rick is the main character. But yeah, so there was little things they've done that were different to make it interesting. There's characters in the TV show that don't exist in the comics, like Daryl, who's one of the biggest, most popular characters in the TV show, does not exist in the comic world. It's, yeah, so it's there are different changes.
Right.
But So I expected it with Game of Thrones. Like, it shouldn't be a copy of the book, because if you're just copying the book, then people are going to be pissed too.
Yeah, and, or bored. I mean, God, it's not.
Yeah,
it's cool to show a story and do some differences for the sake of
and
your
the
own
fact
way.
that you can, yeah.
If you don't take away from the tone of what Game of Thrones is, and that's one of the things, like they were talking about, you know, spin-offs and stuff, like with these characters specifically, and they said they don't want to change what they did. That was Benioff's and Weiss's version, and they like just what they did, and I do too, man. And if they want to do like a prequel talking about like the Targaryens when they first came to rule and all that other stuff, I'm into that, man. I'm down for more Game of Thrones type stuff. I like story, but I don't want to see anything with these characters again. I love the way it began and ended.
The very first prequel, they've already started filming, and it's about the First Men.
And I think that's cool, man. I think that's neat. I think playing in that department is fun, and I think it's worthwhile and a good time, but there's no reason to shape or change or bring back any of these people to do it. The only one that maybe I would have liked to have seen was Arya do more stuff, just because I want to see where she goes in that ship. It just seemed cool. Yeah. I kind of wanted to go on that adventure with her.
Yeah, I would have loved to have been a crew on that ship to see what happens and where she goes.
But I don't want to see Sansa rule the North. I don't want to see Bran rule the kingdom. Like, I don't want to see what happens after that. I don't want to see... Because, you know, history repeats itself. So something's going to go wrong, and I don't need to see it.
I've already seen the movie with Bran ruling. It's called Minority Report. Pre-crime.
Pre-crime.
He's going to know if you're going to try and overthrow him, so he's going to take you out before you try to overthrow him. Like, he knows this thing now. Like, he's going to rule until he dies. It's plain and it's going to be boring. Like, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing an entire, like, sitcom of just the mini council.
And just to watch those comical, like, just that whole thing was fun to see. Like, those guys talking to each other and stuff. It was good.
Yeah. But, yeah, no, I completely agree. Arya would be amazing to see a continuation of what happens. But, and I mean, really, couldn't Bran just tell her what's west of Westeros?
I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I liked it. I liked the way they did it. And for all of you that didn't like it, man, you're entitled to that. I had to vent a little bit myself, because I'm personally disappointed in the fan base, because I don't think that the backlash was warranted. I think that you can be disappointed. I think that you can be not okay with something that everybody. I mean, I've got
and you're allowed to voice that opinion,
right? But to the point of signing petitions and getting so angry to try to, you know, outburst against these people have busted their butts to try to present a great show for the audience, for the fans. The writers have worked their asses off, and these directors have done a great job, and it finalized well, and I liked it. And I just, as soon as I saw it, like, the episode ended, and I was like, man, that was really good. I bet people really enjoyed that. And then I saw the internet, and I was like, oh, okay. The internet did not like that. People didn't enjoy that. Like, and maybe I'm way off course, man. Maybe the majority happens to be right in some way or another. But
the funny thing is, I thought it was good too. And it's actually funny, because the more surveys come out, like, you'll read one and they're like, 50% of the people hated the episode and blah, 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 blah. And then, but there was actually, like, a survey I saw, not Rotten Tomatoes, but an actual, like, people were surveyed. 64% of people that responded said it was good. They enjoyed the final season.
Yeah, I mean, our friend base, most everybody enjoyed it. Like,
yeah, everybody has little issues with it. Like, you can nitpick it, yes.
Yeah, I could nitpick
anything.
But I didn't. My nitpick was that I wanted John to get burned so I could see him not burned. That's all I wanted to see. Yeah. Like, I personally had no issue with how anything turned out. Like, I had zero. I didn't, like, I watched it and I enjoyed every bit of it. I liked how every character went or what adventure they went on. I like how they all ended up. It all made sense to me. Every personality fit the description. I loved the fact that discussion between Jon and Tyrion, where Tyrion was like, you're the only one that can do this. You have been the defender of men since the day you were born. You do the right thing no matter what the cost to you. Yeah, that was great.
Why he told everybody he killed her, I don't understand.
Because that's Jon.
Man. I know that is totally Jon, but he didn't have to say it.
It doesn't matter. It's not about whether he has to or not. He does because he's Jon. He knows what he did.
I know, and that's his character to a T. Like, that's just who he is.
Right, and everything worked to the character. And So I know that one of the big ones was Cersei. Everybody wanted to see Cersei tortured. Everybody wanted to see Cersei like done in a bad. Dude, I got to watch Cersei cry and legit be scared. I got to watch fear. For me,
she was no longer
joy.
The powerful queen.
Right. It was joy for me to see her broken. Like, that was enough for me. I liked seeing Cersei broken. I like it.
And there was a bit of redemption in that, because you got to see Jaime be the protector of her and her accept it.
Yeah, and
so there was a bit of redemption.
He's faulted, man. He's just not he never was going to be the good guy. He's been the Kingslayer since the beginning. Yeah.
He tried to be the good guy.
Yeah, you saw that, but his drug is Cersei. Like, his drug is her, and it's his love. Like, you see a lot of people, Jon failed because of love. You see, Jaime fail because of love. You see Tyrion fail because of love. You see people fail because of love. And love is such a, like Grey Worm. Grey Worm and Daenerys both fell because of love. Like, it's all love. Love ruins so many things when it doesn't, like when you selfishly take it as something you deserve instead of just dealing with heartbreak, and you take it one of two ways. And we got to see a lot of people with their hearts broken that were blinded by love, blinded by like blind obedience due to love. And it's dangerous. And I thought there was just some really cool stories that were told. And I thought there were some fitting endings for a lot of characters. I thought it was awesome. I really, really enjoyed it.
I would have loved if they had been able to somehow explain just a little bit more why Drogon torched the throne. I get it. It's just there's two conflicting thoughts in my brain on why he did it. Like, was he so dumb that he just killed the pointy thing in the room? Or was it the pure, he knew that the drive for that seat is what killed his mom, and so he torched it so it wouldn't be that for anybody else. To me, like, that's what I read it as, is that is what it was. He's done. I'm done with this. I'm done with everything. It killed my mom. This is the evil thing that drove her to it. I'm going to get rid of it. Nobody's going to sit on it. And then he went off.
And see, that's one thing with Drogon. I don't know how that, like, that's the unfortunate thing. You don't get really a read on that. Like, why would an animal do anything, right? Like, why would this beast, and dragons aren't stupid. So it's one of those things, like, it's instinctual going to be this way. That's its mother. As far as it sees, she's dead. What does he do? He torches the throne. Is that just an angry torch and he just happened to hit the throne? Like, is it what you said, where it's a symbol of what got her killed? Does he not kill Jon because, she trusted him and he sees it as okay, maybe, I honestly don't know.
Because he knows that Jon's a Targaryen and it's blood.
Could be. Yep, and that could be it. And honestly, when that happened, if there was one part that I agree with you, I actually would have liked to explain just a little bit more, that would be it. And honestly, now that we're talking about it, if there was something I needed just a little more of, it was maybe justification why he didn't kill Jon, or why he did why he torched the throne. Like, I get why he would take her and leave. There's no reason to be there anymore. But that part, and honestly, I will tell you that.
Yep.
Well, I was going to say, I waited for the director. I wanted to see the director's piece at the end, and they didn't do one.
Yeah. Okay.
It was a bummer.
I didn't even see that part.
Yeah, they didn't do a direct. You know how they do a director explanation after each episode? I was waiting for the one after the finale, and I was hoping they would address that part specifically, just so I could see maybe if I'm reading into it too much, or if maybe they had something that they did there for a reason. I was hoping for something, but
yeah. My gut is leaning towards he was smart enough to know, just because of other things they'd had hinted at with his Drogon's like personality, like the looking at Jon and like deep. It was like a look deep into his soul when they were like hugging on the beach and stuff. Like, there was more to it. Like, it was a knowing look than just I'm an animal and I'm staring at you because you're hugging my mom.
Yeah.
So my hope is there was more to it. But yeah.
I would have thought it was cool if Bran had like wargoned into him. I thought that would have been neat.
that's one of the theories going around, that Bran warged into him while he was tortured, and he was the one that torched the city to ensure that Jon would kill her so Bran could get to be king.
Interesting.
There's so many theories that are out right now about what Bran did. Like, where did he go when the battle for Winterfell was happening? He just warged into crows and took off. Like, why? What happened? Like,
you don't question the three-eyed raven, man. He just does.
I know he just does what I'm out of here. Peace. Protect me. Yeah. But no, there was so many stories within it, like especially in this final season, that I completely liked the way they finished. Theon's death.
So good.
So deserved. Such a great close to the story arc. The battle, the Clegane Bowl, as everybody's calling it. I loved that the Hound got to face his fears, go through fire, fight his brother.
Yeah, that was really fun and sad. It's tragic because you'd fallen in love with Sandor. Like, he'd become this character that just, he was so good to Arya, and they'd had like,
and Sansa.
And I love the moment. Well, Sansa, he was a protectorate of, and I appreciated that. But I mean, like, the relationship between him and Arya of like two killers, but he sees Arya still as a girl. That, you know, like she's this, you know, he sees her as young and still able to, you know, become something better than what he is. And revenge
and part
is his
of
only
that
thing.
That is one of the things I had to fight people on in that, especially in that Discord, was they were really angry at the fact that there was no build up to her changing her mind and leaving.
It didn't need one. She respects Sandor.
She totally. And I was like, there was build up though. Like, you've got to think all the time they've spent together, every single thing that he has said to her since day one was never anger, kill, kill, kill. Everything he said, he talked to her about was always what he missed in life.
Yeah, it was an incredible, like, that was an amazing relationship for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure, again, a scene they probably cut out, which if they had left in the 2 minutes that it would have, I don't think it would have impacted anything. But I'm sure on the ride from the north to King's Landing, he more than likely probably had talked about what he had missed, and seeing her, maybe even saying, hey, I saw you with Gendry and you guys looked like you might be good together. Is that something? Like, they were at that point where they could have that talk. And I'm sure they probably did while they were riding. And that's when they were in the Red Keep, him turning and saying, don't be me. Don't let hatred rule your life. Choose something else. She decided, okay, yes, I'm going to go choose something else. Part of me had hoped that she was going to go off and be with Gendry and have babies and be like super ruler. But I'm not upset with her going off and exploring either. Both of them would have been completely fitting ends to her story. And I'm not upset about it. But that was one of the fights I've had in the last couple of weeks, is that change in her was not something that just happened. It was stuff they hinted. Her sleeping with Gendry was, hey, look, she's not just this heartless killer. She has feelings. Like, she has wants,
she has needs, she has things that are on her mind, man. And
other than just killing people, like,
I think the ride could have been complete silence, and that moment was still just as impactful. It just, for me, I think that because of what you said, just without the ride from the north to King's Landing, without a word spoken, the stuff they'd been through and the things she had seen, like when she said that I don't want to spend my last night alive with you old fuckers, basically. And she went and she slept with Gendry and stuff. Like, it showed that, like, she's not stupid. She sees what
there's more to life than just what that was.
But she's a killer, and all she saw was blood. By the time they got in King's Landing, it was time to kill Cersei. And so it took that moment to kind of snap her out of it, to remind her, hey, little one, like, you gotta cut this shit. And he'd come to a point now where
don't let this consume you.
Yeah, and it wasn't like their first beginnings with each other where she was just this little girl. He saw what she was now, and he treated her with a mutual respect. And so I think that there was something there. And I agree with you, though. There could have been a lot of conversation that was had on the King's Road, going to King's Landing. But what I'm saying is, I think it could have been complete silence, and I think that him saying that to her would be just as impactful to her character.
Yeah, both ways it works. I had no problem with it at all.
It was one of my favorite moments in the season.
Same. Sandor
loved
had
it.
become one of my favorite characters. And I actually have no issue with the fact that they prettied him up over the years. Because again, this is a TV show. This is what they are known to do in the cinematic world, is when somebody is mean or evil, they look mean or evil. And that's the way he was early on in Game of Thrones. Season 1, he looked horrible. I have absolutely no problem with him in season 7 and season 8 being nice looking. His hair being better done, his scar less scarred. Because it's showing that there's the prettier side to him, because that's what he's showing.
Yeah, did you ever play the game, is it Fabled?
Yes, Fable. Yeah.
Yeah,
where you
Fable.
can go evil or...
Yeah, and it changes your look. What I loved that game. I played that on an Xbox a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No,
man,
I completely... There is...
Sorry. Continue.
I know. Both of us we're at the same... It's just like... So this is exactly what we got at when we did our State of Geek Culture thing, where we're talking about something that is insanely popular, which is what Patton had issue with, but we're breaking it down to the nuanced little levels that allow it to still be what somebody falls in love with. Like the Theon story arc. There are people that absolutely love the character of Theon Greyjoy and what he went through because it hit home to them. Same thing with Arya. Like this is what is good about geek culture being popular. And exactly why we started this podcast.
Exactly. Yep. And I might be sad that the audience reacted the way they did, but I myself and my friends, we got to enjoy it. And we get to talk about it, and Steve and I now get to say our piece and kind of put it out there, and you can feel however you want to feel, and I respect that.
Yeah, and if you want,
I don't like it, but I respect it. Whatever.
And if you have issue with anything we're saying, or you want to have a discussion with us, feel free. That's what our Twitters are for. That's what Facebook group is for. That everything.
But
sorry, I'm muted in the Discord for that, or in the thing. Yeah, so I don't know if you cut out or not, but if you need to communicate with us, like, we have ways that you can talk to us, and feel free to use them. We want to engage in this discussion. That's part of what the show is about. We want to further the discussion and growth of geek culture, and not just geek culture about geeky things. Like, there's so much stuff that you can geek out about.
You geek out about gardening, man.
God, my wife geeks out about Grey's Anatomy and all these other shows, and I watch Grey's with her, and I can see why. So there's so much more that we can do. So I think this is probably a good point for us to segue before we get really too angry and just go on a tangent for 4 hours about Game of Thrones.
No, you're good, man. So yeah, tell them where they can find us, Steve.
Yes. So as I was saying, our Twitter, I'm CanYouGeek. Errane is Southam Designs. Our Facebook group is CanYouGeek Nerds. We're on Patreon as CanYouGeek, which again with Patreon, right now we have it set up to $5 a month. And what it'll do is give you private access to our Discord. Right now, there's not a ton in there, but we're going to build on it. We're going to grow. Your feedback on what you would like to see in there would be huge. If you need to email us, it's show@canyougeek.com. Any questions you have, we really want to interact with you guys more. So the more you can communicate with us, the better. We love it. And it will hopefully help us improve the product and give you more of what you want to hear. So,
yeah, reach out.
And so on that note, we will end this episode.
Later, nerds.
Later, nerds.
Today's music is used by permission from the artist Broke for Free. The song is called Something Elated. You can find it on freemusicarchive.org under the user Broke for Free.